Fraudsters with Asterisk, which is a nice title for the actual content, which is going to be the credit card fraud world and what Asterisk has to do with that. So I'll start with a short brief about me. I'm an Asterisk fan for the past 7 years. I've done freelancing jobs, created mail to fax systems, stuff like that when I was 18 and so on. This is my second Astricon. My first Astricon was last year, and this is the second time I'm speaking. I also used to work for Greenfield Tech, for Nir and Eric, that are going to speak today on 2 different subjects. One of them is a session called Mobile VoIP is Too Damn Hard, which I assume is going to talk about the mobile VoIP SDK Greenfield has created, and I helped them on that process. And for the past few months, I've been working as a research engineer for a company called Forter, which is based in Tel Aviv. And what Forter does is Forter provides credit card fraud prevention service. This is not going to be a sales pitch at all. I'm actually not here in the name of Forter. I'm here because, as I said, I'm an Asterisk fan. And it's kind of hard to disconnect from the Asterisk community, even when you're not working full-time on Asterisk. So what Forter does is it provides decisions to its clients, which means if you have a website, an e-commerce website, and you want to accept credit cards, you can accept every transaction that you're getting, but there's no guarantee you're going to actually get the money. Which means if someone used a stolen credit card or a credit card with, let's say, a limited credit limit, then he can get a transaction authorized on your website, and you can capture the money. But later on, there's a chance you're going to have to pay that money back to the customer. That usually happens when a stolen credit card is used on your platform. So the whole idea is to help merchants and retailers to be confident enough to accept credit cards on their website without to have the worry about them having to pay later on. And we'll get to that shortly. I'm going to explain a bit how the credit card world works in the US and what you can do to prevent situations where you lose both your products and your money. So as a research engineer in Forter, my day-to-day job is to catch fraudsters and find new ways and new tricks to catch the people trying to steal money from our client's platform. And you'll think that's, what does that have to do with Asterisk? It doesn't have anything to do with Asterisk. For the past 9 months, I've done almost nothing related to Asterisk other than moving Forter from its old Broadsoft PBX to an Asterisk and creating this Slack bot that lets you get Slack notifications if you know Slack. It's a great platform to communicate. We use it on the company. So we do get notifications from our Asterisk when someone calls our DAD when we're not answering. But that's about what I actually had to do with Asterisk for the past 9 months. So why am I going to talk about it in Astricon? You probably ask yourself. The thing is that from recent presentations I've watched of previous Astricons, and also last year I've attended most of the fraud-related sessions. Usually people, when they say fraud in the context of Asterisk, they talk about someone hacking into an Asterisk PBX and steals phone calls to premium numbers or use Asterisk to call people and extract credit card details from them by pretending to be, let's say, Amazon service or stuff like that. But I haven't seen a talk that actually talks about the credit card part and the impact of it for Asterisk users. So I'm going to ask a few questions, if that's OK, and I'd appreciate your participant. How many of you had a chance to build or participate in creating an e-commerce platform? That could be anything that sells products. OK, so we've got about 6, 7 people here. And how many of you had the chance to integrate credit card processing system into a website? So that's about the same people that raised their hand before. And I'm expecting even less hands up now for the next question, which is, how many of you had the chance to add credit card billing system into an Asterisk? OK, so we got one hand up there on the back. That's a complicated world to connect to a service that lets you accept credit cards on your platform. So the most common thing is, let's say you want to pay your bills. You can pay the bills, the utility bills, for example. You can pay them online, and you can also pay them through the phone. And lots of places offer you the ability to pay your bills on an automated phone system or a system that recognizes speech. And I'm going to talk about the challenges in accepting credit cards in a platform automatically and making sure you're still going to keep the money in your pocket. So a bit about how the credit card system works. It works a bit different in the US than in the rest of the world. But basically, you have a few players. And as you can see, at the end of the day, you have the cardholder, and you have the merchant. And the merchant would be yourself if you're selling stuff. It could be you selling stuff on eBay or on your own website. And it could be your customers, which purchased an Asterisk PBX from you. And they sell stuff to others, and they accept credit card transactions. And you might have done the integration for them. But what happens is that the whole process takes place between 2 banks. You have the issuing bank, which is the bank who issued the credit card to the cardholder. That would be the end customer who's purchasing stuff with his credit card. And you have the acquiring bank, which is your bank, the bank that you're using to get the money from the clients themselves. And let's say a client wants to buy a $200 watch. The client browses through your website. He adds the item to the cart. He goes to the checkout page. He fills all the data out. And he presses next. The second he presses next, there's something going on behind the scenes. That's the part of your system, or your website, or we'll later talk about the PBX part. But what essentially is happening is that your system contacts through the gateway. It's using the gateway. It contacts the issuing bank, and it asks the bank if the cardholder has enough money in his credit account to pay for the item that he wants to purchase. And that part is called authorize. And if the bank said yes, that's cool. The transaction is not over. You've just checked he has enough credit. The next part would be to capture the money. So usually, after there's been the authorization part, you'll get the thank you page on the website. You have this message displayed. Thank you for purchasing. We're processing your request. We'll get back to you as soon as possible. And you might even get an email about it. And that's the process itself. That doesn't mean yet that you're going to get the money. It doesn't even mean you've captured the money. And we'll get to that in just a second. But there are also few players in this whole process. You've got the network, which is Visa or MasterCard or Diners or Amex. Those are the brands that you see on the cards themselves. And they actually have nothing to do with the whole process, except of American Express. We'll talk about them in a second. And you have the gateways. And you see down there is that IPSP title. That means Internet Payment Service Provider. Those are the companies that provide you the API to charge the money. But from time to time, let's say Braintree, they are some sort of an acquiring bank themselves. They give you the whole service. You connect to them, you fill a form, and they say, hey, here's your API credentials. You can just send us the credit card number, the amount of money you want, and go ahead and capture it. The only thing different about American Express is that, unlike all the other networks and banks, American Express does everything. They are both the card issuers and they are the network, which means if you want to accept specifically American Express cards on your platform, you have to contact and make a contract with American Express yourselves. And then you can use one of the gateways to actually acquire the money. So I'll talk for a second about the process of the transaction in a bit more details. Let's say you sat at the hotel's bar and you've had a nice dinner. And here comes the part where you want to pay the bill. You probably hand your credit card to the waiter and you say, please get me the check. And the waiter returns with a small piece of paper that looks like that. And it says the total due. You can see it up there. It's $43. And he leaves you the choice to fill in the tip and the total. And at that point, the waiter already authorized. He done the process of authorizing that you have the $43 in your credit account. So let's say you chose to leave no tip at all. They already know you have enough money to pay for the meal. So no problem when you'll return them the note with no tip, as rude as it is, they're still going to get the money for the meal. But let's say that you've left a very nice tip, and that's a photo from a blog telling about someone leaving $3,000 tip for $43 meal. After you've done that, and you fill everything, and you signed on the piece of paper and left the restaurant, the waiter takes the final amount, and he does the capture. He actually goes to his little computer over there, and he types in the final amount of the transaction, and he goes next and says, capture the money. And the moment the capture happened, the money goes to the acquiring bank, to the retailer's bank account, okay, or to the restaurant's bank account. And that way, the money is out of your credit account, and you no longer have that money available for other stuff. And after you've done that, you can just hope for the best, hope that the guy sitting on your bar wasn't using a fake credit card. And if the bar didn't check your ID to see that the name is matching the name on the card, then he's not covered. He's going to have to pay that money back. So most of the businesses believe that for someone to be stupid enough or brave enough to sit in a restaurant and pay with a credit card that is not his or hers is not very common. So they're not asking you to show your ID. But in fact, for them to be insured by the credit company, they have to verify your credit card. Or the new thing that you're seeing now, that all the cards has chip on them and you have to insert the PIN code, that's called EMV. That's a standard by Europay, MasterCard, and Visa. And that's replacing the whole process of checking the customer's ID. But if you haven't done, if you basically did what everyone does and just swipe the credit card, let the guy sign on the little piece of paper and nothing else, if that card was stolen, you're not going to see your money or your products anymore. The same thing, by the way, happens when you fill gas in your car. You go into the counter, you say, please let me fill my tank. And he says, OK, how much is it going to be? Pretty much, let's say 20 bucks. Then he charges you 20 bucks. He is not capturing the money, just authorizing it for 20 bucks. And when you finish fueling up, then he only captures the real amount of money. Let's say it was half, it was $10, then he'll just capture $10, and the other 10 is going to be released again to your account. I want to talk a bit about numbers related to this area of credit card fraud. The whole damage caused to the market each year is now around $16 billion every year. That's lots of money. And that's from a total of $28 trillion of total volume of credit card transactions happening every year. So that's lots of money. And almost 50% of that happens within the US with US credit cards. That's real major problem in the US. And it's not only, it's more than a half, but $9 billion out of that amount of damage is caused in telecom frauds. By saying telecom frauds, I mean that someone is calling you and pretending to be, let's say, your water company and asks you to provide your credit card because you have an unpaid invoice. And then he later uses this credit card to get real products or real money outside of your credit account and into his pocket. And the data you're seeing about the telecom fraud is actually taken from Eric Klein's presentation about fraud last year. So the data is updated all the way to 2015, and it's growing. It's really growing every year. So that's a major problem that is not going to disappear by itself. I want to give you a sense about the type of credit card frauds that are really common out there. So you have the classic type of fraud, which is basically just stealing someone's credit card and using it to buy stuff out on the internet or physically in a store. And when the people made it a profession. People is actually working on stealing credit cards and maximizing them into profits. We've seen trends of people buying out on the internet a bulk of, let's say, 20,000 credit cards, and they're trying to buy with each one the maximum amount of gift cards that they can have. And gift cards are cold hard cash. If you can have, if you store a credit card that has a credit limit of $2,000, you can buy $2,000 worth of gift cards. And you have today Visa gift cards and American Express gift cards available on lots of websites. So that's a great way to make profit. People actually do that full time. And that's a problem there by itself, but eventually websites that sell gift cards, they start finding a pattern and they find a way to block the specific guy who does that. But it's a trend. Other type of fraud, which is more hard to address, is what we call friendly fraud. And that's when your child or your friend or your neighbor or someone got your credit card details and used it to buy stuff. And he got the stuff, but when you go and try to understand why you have $1,000 line in your credit bill, you can't understand why. Someone actually did the transaction. He got the right number. You can say he stole it. But when your child buys an application in the Apple App Store for $50 and then he's saying, no, I didn't do that, it's kind of hard to argue them. And what happens is that we call that friendly fraud because this is something domestic. It came from your side. And it's hard to, the problem is really on the retailer side. Okay? So someone who sold an app for $50 and now he's not getting his money, even though the app was delivered and your child may have played with it. I'm not saying your child, but children in general. And the real problem here is that even if you could have a proper way to find the guy who used the stolen credit card in your website or your platform, and you could get all the way to him. You know where the guy lives. You know his real phone number. And you go to the police with that, they're going to say, we don't really care. Because even $50,000 worth of transactions that someone made and stole are not going to itch the FBI or the local police. It might be more relevant to the IRS, but no one is going to actually do anything about it. And the last and the most sophisticated type of fraud that there is out there is what we call ATO, which is account takeover and manipulations on addresses. So there are two types of things going out there. There are always data leaks out there. You have the recent LinkedIn data breach, which released tens of millions of user emails and hashed passwords out to the internet. And everyone can download it and do whatever he wants with it. So hackers or credit card fraudsters, what they do is that they try to crack your passwords and then use your email and password to log into your Amazon account or eBay account or whatever platform that is. And after they do that, that's the account takeover part, they can do a few things. They can, if they live close to you or they have a friend, or it's not a friend, it's more of a co-felon that can actually go to your address. They can order $1,000 worth of goods to your address with your real name on it. And when the delivery guy is going to leave it on your front porch, their friend or themselves just going to go and take the package when you're not at home. And if you are at home and you find the package, then you're going to, I didn't order this, I can return it, and you'll get the money back. But if they successfully acquired that package, they've got the goods. And the one who is going to stay without the money is the retailer who shipped that, that package. And that's a real problem. And the last, and that's, I think, the most sophisticated way is to perform address manipulation. We've seen fraudsters that just hack into your account. They get all the personal details they need about you, and then they'll call your bank, and they'll ask them to change your billing address into a different address. That could be an hotel, that could be a storage unit somewhere, that could be someone's work. And people does that. And when they've done it, they can actually provide all of the details about your account because it's now their account. And one thing that is really helping, has anyone of you heard about a service called Fiverr? None. That's a new service that, it's a new website actually, that provides $5 services, microservices. So let's say you want to get a business card designed. You go into Fiverr, you'll type on their search box business card, and you'll have a nice guy that offers to create a beautiful business card for you for $5. What they also offer on that website is phone-verified email accounts, or US-activated eBay accounts, or phone-verified or credit card-verified PayPal accounts. And when those accounts are, by many service providers, considered legitimate accounts because you had to go through the certain process that makes sure you have a real phone and maybe even a real credit card. And people sell those accounts for $5. So if I want to make $2,000 worth of stolen goods, I can invest $5 to get such an account. And why is that even a problem? Why would they care about getting stolen credit cards into my platform and charge them, and later on have to pay back? So the chargeback problem is, and chargeback is, by the way, that's the widely used term to describe the process when the issuing bank, when the customer actually contacted this bank and said, listen, I didn't do that transaction. I didn't spend $1,000 in Apple's website. That wasn't me. Give me my money back. And that's called chargeback. The issuing bank is just going to contact your bank and say, listen, this money is not yours. You didn't get it in the right way. Pay back. And those are banks. So my bank would say, no problem, here's your money back. And he'll come to me and he'll say, listen, you took $1,000 transaction, which you're going to now have to pay me back because that wasn't legit. And I can say, I can somehow manage to handle the lost goods. I've shipped a computer worth $10,000. So maybe I can find a way about not losing the money on that, but the real problem is that high fraud rate means penalties. It means sanctions. It means that the credit card company, the network, Visa or MasterCard, if you're going to have lots of fraud coming from their credit cards, they're going to keep an eye on you. They're going to contact your bank, and they're going to tell him that if you, as a retailer, are going to keep having this kind of fraud problem, if you're going to have, and it could be really, really low rate. It could be 2% of the transactions that you're making that turns out to be fraud. So let's say it's 2 transactions, but you have 10% margin of profit. You can say, OK, so it's not a problem. I can work around it. I can handle the money loss. But the real problem is that Visa or MasterCard might say, listen, you are not going to accept our credit cards anymore because you have a fraud problem. And that's the real problem. They're afraid from their network's name reputation going bad. So people out there who has much more experience than me thought about it, and they came up with a solution. The solution is called friction. How many of you have seen this kind of screen when you've purchased something out there? How many of you has been asked to provide a valid phone number in order to complete an online transaction? Could you please raise your hands? OK, so that's surprisingly not lots of you. But that's very common. When you want to activate your WhatsApp account or your iMessage account, you're getting an SMS sent to your device to verify that you actually own that phone number. And lots of people, lots of websites does that. They ask you to provide a valid phone number because they think that's going to help them to know better who are you. And this photo is actually taken from a blog post which tells how to go around that, how to successfully pass that phone verification without actually owning that phone. And they have used Twilio's website as their first example of how to bypass that. There are other sorts of friction. There are websites such as DigitalOcean, if you're familiar with it. It offers really cheap virtual servers. And if you've opened your account in DigitalOcean using a VPN, they're going to know about it, and they're going to ask you to provide them some substantial data. The DigitalOcean specifically, they tell you, OK, you want to try to make it quicker, then log in with your GitHub account or Twitter account, and they're going to check if you have real tweets and stuff like that. But if you're not going to provide any of those accounts, they're going to ask you through email to provide them government-issued photo ID. And when I'm asked to provide a copy of my passport or my ID in order to pay for $5 virtual machine, I'm going to use a different company. And that, by the way, doesn't happen when you're not using VPN. So it's kind of their trick to decide when to do this friction. There are also ways of friction that there's no way around. Have any one of you ever seen this kind of page, the verified by Visa or 3D secured? OK, so there are a few of you out there. That's a new trick by Visa, and I think MasterCard has the same. They're asking you to do this crazy thing where in order to pay for an online transaction, let's say the transaction here is 54 euros. To pay for that transaction, they ask me to find my credit statement that I've got by mail from 2 months ago or 1 month ago, open it, and then at the top left corner to find this 8 characters code and type it into the website. And this specific screenshot is taken from a blog post called Verified by Visa Can F Off Back to the Hell from Whence It Came From. That thing makes people run away from your website or from your platform. So the friction, people adding those precautions to their website, costs to the market $100 billion worth of lost business opportunities. If they drove me away from their website, they lost my money. And that's what happened with DigitalOcean when they asked me to pay, to provide my ID for $5 machine. And why would they use friction if I don't have a problem? And that leads us to the next bullet, how to tell if there's a problem on your website. As I said, there's a chance you're going to get contacted by your network or by your processor, and they're going to tell you, listen, buddy, you've got a problem. 2% of your transactions are fraudulent, and you're going to have to do something about it, or we're going to cut you off. And there's a chance that your CFO would contact you and will tell you, listen, we're losing revenue. And that's something you're going to have to solve. There's also the possibility that you've experienced an attack on your service. And I've heard a nice story here from a friend of mine about him adding, when he started to accept credit cards in his website, he provided the VoIP services to customers. And when he started accepting credit cards on the website, he had people checking stolen credit cards using his platform. They tried to purchase $5 worth of credit to make phone calls. And whenever they used the stolen credit card, which was reported stolen, they've got rejected. But whenever they found a valid credit card, the transaction went through. So this friend had a few thousand of transactions running through his system from time to time, checking stolen credit cards on his website that has nothing to do with real. Obviously, it means a lot to him, the ability to accept credit cards, but that hasn't been the fraudster's purpose, to purchase those minutes. He just wanted to know if the credit cards are good to use. And another way to tell if there's a problem is to attend this session, because I'm telling you there is a problem. Even if you don't currently experience it, you might experience it, because there's a shift out of transactions who's made in cash, and not everyone has a signed contract with their customers and that says that we're going to provide you with a billing statement and you're going to wire us the money. Lots of people accept credit cards. They do it automatically. They do it in every hour of the day. And you can't control all of those manually. And what can you do to address that issue on your platform? And that's where I'm going to start talking a bit more about Asterisk and less about the credit card world. Well, don't try to be fraud experts. That's a job for full time. That's you have job titles that were made for it. You have chief risk officers now. You have a risk management officer. You have people that it's their profession to fight the fraud in your platform. But you also have few automated solutions. You've got solutions like Humbug or PinDrop, which only use CDRs and phone recordings from your platform to tell if the call you're currently getting is fraudulent, or if you have suspicious activity in your PBX, they're going to let you know about it. And that could help you make a decision about whether to accept the transaction or not. But that's not 100% hermetic. That's also not using the data that you can acquire from your website, which leads us to the other type of fraud detection services, the web-based fraud detection services, I'm sorry. The website-based are services like Forter and its competitors, which completely relies on the browsing your users is doing on the website to get a decision whether this transaction is valid or not, because you have way more information on the web browser than you have on a phone call. On a phone call, you just get the phone number and the person's voice, which you can do a lot of with those, but that's not all of it. And on web, you know the guy's IP address and stuff like that. And you also have hybrid services which can take advantage of all of those together, both the phone calls, both the website browsing sessions, but none of those offer you 100% coverage. None of them tells you that, listen, no matter where you're getting the transaction from, it doesn't matter if it's from web or if it's from phone, we're going to cover your back. And the real challenge is about how to link those two. That's why no one would give you the whole coverage. It's really hard to link someone's browsing into a phone call that you can make 2 days later when he hasn't gotten the email that says, listen, your shipment is on the way. And if you still wish to become fraud experts, you can go through training, or you can take some tips from this session, which I'm now going to get. And I'm going to do this real quick, because we don't have much of time. You have active methods to block fraudsters. When someone calls you, you can prompt them for their order ID from the web. You can ask them to use DTMF to provide their web order ID, or you can ask them to do that through dictation. You can require documents like DigitalOcean does, which means if someone calls you and says, hey, I've seen that you didn't accept my $2,000 worth of good transaction. What's going on? What's wrong? And they're going to say, oh, listen, no problem. We'll do that, but just send us a copy of your government-issued ID, and we'll send the products to you ASAP. That drives people away. You can ask your customers for voice authentication, which I think is crazy to ask someone to provide his voice fingerprint in order to purchase something from your platform. And you can also talk to the customers and hear it on their voice. You have passive methods, and that's where Asterisk can kick in. You can do HLR lookups. HLR is a type of query that you do to find where the subscriber that is calling you, the caller ID that is calling you, coming from. Is he connected to a certain network? Which carrier is he using? You can use call recording. You can fingerprint your speakers. And you can also do transcription analysis, which I'll be happy to elaborate about it later. But that means analyzing the transcription of the call to, and then make a decision about how many. There are algorithms for that, about what are the chances that this guy is lying just from the words he's using. And you can also do it with Asterisk. You can do it with callbacks, and that's something Amazon does. If you want to contact them by phone regarding any order, you have to put your phone number, and they're going to call you. And that's effective because they know that the number they're calling is actually going to answer. And the user feels like they're paying for the call, so why would he care? No problem. And the other thing, and that's where I'm going to finish, is what I think is a fair trade-off is a thing I call one-time DID, one-time phone number. And that's much like the one-time password concept. Provide your user a single phone number, one-time use phone number. Let him go through the website. Let him pick the subject that he needs support for. Let's say issues with my order, and pick the order ID. And then say, hey, listen, no problem. Just dial this number. This is a special number for you. And we're going to get you right to a specialist who's going to help you with your specific issue. And when the user is calling that specific number, you know where it came from, because that number is now designated for it's waiting for him to call. And down here, you have a link for a GitHub repository I've opened. I'm going to upload there within less than a month a simple implementation of that thing with Asterisk and ARI. A simple API that lets you put in DID numbers to use in that kind of concept, and then to later get the data from your website into your Asterisk call. And that's about it. The slides will be up there. I'll be happy to answer questions a bit later. I hope it wasn't too heavy on you this morning, and I hope you've learned something new.
We'll take a couple of questions.
Yeah, OK.
Anybody in the audience have any questions? All right.
Great.
Thank you, Or.
Thanks.
Hold on. Let's go back here and get this one. Hold.
It has nothing to do with VoIP actually, but you being in the fraud industry, do you actually foresee that US at some point would enforce the PIN code on credit card? Because that's pretty much what prevents, I would say, Europe to actually enforce it. Many of our European website, when you actually do a sale, we enforce and to actually people to PIN on a website.
That is also another level of friction. The problem is that nobody actually does. Maybe in Europe they enforce it, but at the States nobody does that.
The pin. We just have chip.
Yeah.
It doesn't really solve the problem.
Well, thank you.
Welcome. Thank you, guys.